Representatives Brian Fitzpatrick, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Matt Gaetz, and Raja Krishnamurthy have introduced the bipartisan Restoring Faith in Government Act, which would prohibit, quote, financial investments by members of Congress and their spouses and any dependents. Congressman Fitzpatrick wrote members of Congress, including their dependents, must be prohibited from trading in stocks while they are serving in Congress and have access to sensitive inside information. This is basic common sense and basic integrity 101.
The bill follows other similar proposals, including Abigail Spanberger and Chip Roy's Trust in Congress Act, which has been introduced 3 different times, Senator Josh Hawley's Pelosi Act, which would ban members of Congress from trading and owning stocks, Minnesota's Angie Craig's in January introduced legislation to prevent members of Congress from owning or trading stocks, and a bipartisan bill introduced by Pramila Jayapal, Matt Rosendale, and Ken Buck in March would ban lawmakers and their spouses from owning or trading individual stocks. That's all according to great reporting from The Hill, showing that this is something that a lot of members of Congress have expressed interest in. Usually, to my mind anyway, bipartisanship is often bad. It means like coming together to reauthorize the Patriot Act or something.
Right.
This is a rare example of good bipartisanship where people as different as AOC and Matt Gaetz and you know, your Tea Party congressman, your very far left congressman, your centrist kind of problem solvers congressman people have all agreed that this is just ugly, that the American people are fed up with incident after incident where somebody learns the pandemic's about to happen and then, you know, tells their brother or their spouse to, you know, buy shares in Pfizer or dump shares in Facebook or whatever it is. So you would hope this would be a no-brainer. And the only thing that seems like it's been standing in the way of it so far is that many members of Congress do actually profit from this kind of thing, including Nancy Pelosi, who has really dragged her feet on letting anything like this happen.
When we talk about this issue, we talk about the insider trader that goes one way, right? Are we going to pass legislation that's going to regulate X, Y, or Z industry in some way? Are we hearing inside information about what's going on in abroad that might affect markets within the United States in some degree, and therefore we pull out stocks if we have stocks, you know, in a sector that's in jeopardy? But there's also this kind of reverse situation where if you have so much money invested in stocks in a certain sector, in a certain company, you're less likely to regulate in that industry. When I think about, you know, the rail industry, for example, when I think about how much workers are paid and why we haven't passed a minimum wage, it's going to cut into companies' profit margins that many members of Congress have dollars invested in. If we raise the minimum wage, it's going to cut into the returns to the shareholders, which many of members of Congress are. The majority of members of Congress have money invested in stocks, so this would affect a lot of them. I'm sure it's very popular among constituents, but whether or not we see something actually get passed, I'm so skeptical of. I really like that they named the Pelosi Act because she has a portfolio created by finance bros called the Insider Fund, where they match her and her husband's trades. And people invest in it because it outperforms the market.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I remember, you know, watching her rail against how Facebook is destroying democracy. I'm like, wait a minute, your husband, like they make money from Facebook. They're investors. It's really incredible. And like, as you said, it's something that, so I'm looking at Fox's coverage of this. Fox is all about this. Jesse Waters did a great segment on this. Conservatives want this. They want to ban members of Congress. Some of the kind of Tea Party members of Congress want this too. And then, of course, tons of progressives. Progressives are against insider trading in general. Why that wouldn't apply to members of Congress? It's almost like they're getting a special exemption here. In general, you can't profit from information that you're privy to about stocks that's not publicly available. Like, you can be prosecuted for that. But members of Congress who can influence those prices by having knowledge of what regulation is coming down the pipeline, or just like what's going to happen in the country. They knew before the rest of us that the pandemic was going to be really bad. They're allowed to profit from it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's not. It's entirely backwards. It shouldn't be allowed. The fact that it is currently allowed, I think, makes people angry and blows their minds. The fact that we actually have to reintroduce legislation about this is insane, and make new legislation about it. Immediately when I saw this headline, I can't help my imagination, and I went back to when they were trying to confirm Kevin McCarthy as Speaker of the House, and there were all of these videos of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talking to Matt Gaetz and what they could possibly conspiring about.
So now we know what they were talking about.
Yeah, when I saw these two names together, I'm like, do you think this was premeditated in that moment? I'm not sure.
I remember seeing a lot of the great, whatever it is, it's like bad lip reading, yes, where they read a script for it. Those were hilarious. The one of AOC talking to that really quite Trumpy Republican, Paul Gosar. That was my favorite one. Looked like they were having this really interesting conversation. Of course, we had no idea what they were actually talking about. But yeah, look, AOC, Matt Gaetz, others coming together to support legislation that, again, is wildly popular. This is something, I bet if you polled the American people, this is like a 70% issue for people. Like, of course, the people with special additional knowledge should not be able to profit from that within Congress. But Pelosi, when she was in leadership, was very adept at first just saying no. She said we're pro-capitalism, so we're not going to do this. But like, I'm pro-capitalism, but the government, the people who set the rules, getting to the government rules, allowing them to profit from the rules they themselves set, is not actually capitalism, to my mind. I think she was cynically using capitalism to excuse her own behavior. And then she said, fine, we'll do something on this. I think it was literally called the Stock Act. And here we are still.
Who enforces our economic system if not the state, Robby?
Oh, well, ideally no one. But if someone is going to, if the state's going to be enforcing it, then the rules have to apply to the state itself as well. Right.
If they're writing the regulations. Yeah, I think it's like the inside information is one thing.
Yeah.
And then the power to game the system by, you are tasked with regulating these companies and making legislation that's going to affect economic activity. It's insane to me that if working people who are your constituents get paid more, you, who are supposed to represent me, will get paid less. There will be less returns to you as a shareholder. That is backwards. At the end of the day, with that setup, they no longer work for us. They work for the people they're making money off of. And so I think this is entirely fair. I'm fascinated to hear them make a meal out of whatever kind of case they're going to make for why this should not be passed, which I'm sure they're going to come up with.
I mean, it shouldn't be passed because, unlike the Pelosi Act, it doesn't have a catchy name. It doesn't.
That's true.
It's not an interesting acronym. Bipartisan Restoring Faith in Government Act. This is the BRFGA. The BRFGA.
The BRFGA.
We got to support the BRFGA. Doesn't really roll off the tongue.
I think it's catchy. I like it.
Yeah,
if we say it enough, maybe it'll catch on. Pass the BRFGA.
Hopefully. More Rising right after this.